Yeah. Yo. Summer of 1995, hot night in July. Why did Janet have to die? This is the story of Eddie, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The system is petty, juvenile law and politics so deadly. 15 years old, known as Big Lovable Teddy. Janet Downing, 42 years old, what's the motive? Killed in her home, young mother devoted. Eddie went in the house, the door was open. She was on the kitchen floor, laying there frozen. Eddie claims this was not what he planned to see. A man with a mask grabbed him. Be quiet. I will kill your whole family. Eddie left the house, ran up the street. Around the corner, washed up in the bathroom at Burger King. Janet was stabbed multiple times. Rest in peace. It was a gruesome murder scene. I agree. Eddie went to his work, said he got jumped, but never said a thing. What? About Janet lying there lifeless. His friend's mother from across the street. Shh, he was in the house. But Janet had a brother-in-law she kicked out for selling drugs. Said if anything ever happened to her, it's him you bring up. The night of the murder he showed up, was acting suspicious in the front yard. Gina in Virginia says he was looking for his keys. It was humid and muggy, but we were showered and neat. He was a cab driver looking for his key. Looking for a key to one of the cabs in the fleet. Yes. How did he know something happened on that street? Eddie says he is innocent, and the cab driver did it.
Who do you believe?
Believe.
DNA under Janet's fingernail, unidentified. Who do you believe?
Come on, come on.
This is the story of Eddie, 15 years old.
Life in prison.
This is the story of Janet, life taken and stolen.
For no reason.
It was the summer,
July 1995.
do you all remember?
Do y'all remember?
30 years ago, why she have to die?
15
Why she
years
have to die?
old, locked in a cage of murder that he always denied.
He always denied it. Who you
Let's
believe?
go. Summer of 95.
Who do you believe?
Life goes by.
Life goes by.
Welcome to the stream,
Welcome.
long gamers.
What up, long gamers?
Peace and love.
R.I.P. Janet Downing.
La la la. Let's take them back.
R.I.P. Janet Downing. R.I.P.
Yeah.
Janet
Let's take them
Downing.
back.
Yeah, let's take them back for sure. Let's take them back, but be clear. Be clear the way this goes down. R.I.P. Janet Downing. We don't know what happened that night, but we do know the facts. The facts of the case: it was a taxi man, taxi cab driver, looking for his key. It was Paul Jr. that had a story, had a bag with a knife in it, and there was Eddie. And of course, there was Janet, who paid the ultimate price. Innocent, guilty, I don't know. But one thing we do know, based on what we learned about this trial, based on what we learned about DNA, we learned that they ran that DNA and it didn't come back to Eddie. So that's not a fair trial, is it? It's touchy. Very touchy subject, considering the way Janet passed away, considering how personal it was. It was so personal, wasn't it? 98 times. I don't take that too lightly, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be clear, J.F.K. does not take that too lightly. And I never will. This is not a free Eddie campaign. Because at the end of the day, we don't know exactly what happened just yet, do we? Just yet. People in the chat, we're bringing the facts. We're having interviews with people. If they want to say they don't think Eddie did it, that's cool. But I urge everybody to dig deep and make your opinions and your assessments by knowing all the facts and really looking at everything. But one thing we can all agree on, that there wasn't a fair trial. And where this makes it real funky is the word, is that everybody deserves a fair trial. But what happened to Janet Downing was so brutal, so horrible, so brutal, so horrible. It was so brutal, so horrible. You do. Seems like you give a shit. And you're one of them. You're one of the people. You're one of the people, Sandy, son. You're one of them. So welcome to the stream. It was so brutal, so horrible that it's hard to even care at that point. Should someone have a fair trial? If all the evidence is pointing in one direction, and knowing how brutal this situation was, at that point you're just like, who cares, right? Most people would say that. Most people would say that. And that is the pickle, ladies and gentlemen. That is the problem. Because what if Eddie O'Brien didn't do this? The appeal hasn't been filed yet. The appeal hasn't been filed yet. So we don't know the ins and outs, and we don't know what Eddie O'Brien is saying. Eddie is saying just yet, do we? He's not showing his cards just yet, rightfully so. He has a proper plan, patience. And keep in mind, this didn't happen yesterday. This happened 30 years ago. But for 30 years, he's been saying he's innocent. For 30 years. His parents, community. And we found out some things, right? Through the Karen Reed case, what parallels this case, that we found corruption. On December 22nd of 1995, a judge in Middlesex County, Eddie O'Brien went to bail reduction in juvenile court. Well, he went to a bail reduction. He was still in juvenile court. The judge looked over the case, knew exactly what the case was about. It was all over the news. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. She looked at all the evidence. She looked at everything. And she came up with a decision. And that decision was, let's release him on a $20,000 cash bail. $20,000 cash bail. Would you believe it? This was December 22nd. His little sister was turning 3 years old. It was her birthday, December 22nd, 1995. This happened January 23rd of 1995, December 22nd of that year. The judge was going to release Eddie on his sister's birthday on a $20,000 cash bail. And would you believe that Eddie's parents paid the bill? Eddie was being held. He was being held in Plymouth, Massachusetts, in a jail. It was on the jail grounds. It was a juvenile facility, but it was in the jail. In juvenile detention, they call you a resident. They don't call you an inmate. They call you a resident. You know why? Do you know why? Because they don't want you to get an inmate mentality. But make no mistake, he was in jail. Make no mistake, he was in jail. He was in Plymouth County House of Correction. He was in jail. He wasn't a resident. He was an inmate. So while he's sitting in Plymouth House of Correction, the Plymouth DYS, Department of Youth Service, he knows he's getting bailed out. His parents put the $20,000 bail out. They drive him. The sheriffs drive him from Plymouth to Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is about an hour, roughly an hour, maybe a little less, depending on traffic. They drive him from Plymouth to Cambridge, where he's going to be released to his parents in Cambridge. But there was a DA, a Middlesex County DA. You guys familiar with the DA in Norfolk County? His name's Morrissey. You familiar with him? Well, there was a DA back in 1995. His name was Thomas Riley. And he appealed that decision. Governor Weld even spoke on it on the State House steps and said this man, keep in mind Eddie O'Brien was 15 years old. He said this man should not be released. Hell to the no. Thomas Riley, the Middlesex County DA, appealed it. Keep in mind, a judge set the bail. I think it was no bail at first. He went to bail reduction. They dropped it to $20,000, came up with stipulations. Then he appealed it, Supreme Court. Eddie's sitting in Cambridge. He just took the ride, December 22nd, coming home for Christmas. He never missed Christmas in his life. He's an altar boy. He doesn't even know what it's like to miss Christmas. And he thinks he's coming home. His family thinks they're coming home. Yeah, everybody. Jeannie thought he was coming home. Trisha, Big Ed. They were going to get the Christmas tree. They waited for him. It was his 2-year-old. She's about to be 3 that day, I think. It was a great day. They were driving home in the sheriff's van. Word has it they played Frosty the Snowman. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, isn't it? Isn't it funny that we're talking about this story exactly at the same time 30 years ago? when this all went down, is it beginning to look a lot like Christmas to you? Did you go to Walmart recently? Target? Did you drive through your square, your downtown area? Do you see Christmas trees, Christmas lights, little candy canes? Did you happen to click on the radio and hear a Christmas carol? It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, isn't it? Well, Eddie thought he was coming home. But they overturned it. They overturned the decision for him to come home. Thomas Riley, the DA of Middlesex County, said, "Not on my watch," and did something that never been done before. Overturned a bail reduction decision. He's the same guy who tried the case. Imagine Morrissey tried Karen Reed's case. Well, that's what Thomas Riley did. Do you know back then, 30 years ago, there was a nanny who shook a baby and killed a little baby, and he lost that case, Thomas Riley? Do you know that there was another woman, a young girl who passed away at that time, was an unsolved murder? Do you know that? Do you know that Thomas Riley was going for Attorney General? Do you know that he was trying to change juvenile laws? I know I'm talking a little fast. Am I talking too fast for you? Am I? Thomas Riley was the DA in Middlesex County, and he tried Eddie O'Brien's case. Thomas Riley went on to be the Attorney General. Thomas Riley changed juvenile law, habitual juvenile offenders. Try them as adults. At 17 years old, Eddie O'Brien went straight to Walpole State Prison. Why? Why is that? Do you know the night of the murder of Janet Downing? Rest in peace, Janet. Thomas Riley showed up to the scene with the CPAC unit. Do you know right before he showed up that the state police were at the hospital and took Eddie O'Brien's blood? Is it politics as usual in Massachusetts? There was a woman, her name's Karen Reed. How do you know? I haven't talked to Karen Reed. Right? That Karen Reed? And the thing is, they said, look the other way. Blame it on the girl. DNA under Janet Downing's fingernail was not Eddie O'Brien's. It excluded Eddie O'Brien. Look the other way. Blame it on the kid? Does that shit sound familiar to you? But there was a lot of evidence against Eddie O'Brien. Make no mistake about it. He had a couple of friends who knocked on the door. See, Eddie went inside the house. Problem is, when he went inside the house and see Janet on the floor, he ran away. But before he ran away, there was a knife to his neck. Said, if you tell anybody what you've seen, I'm going to kill you and your family. Now, why would a 15-year-old be scared? His mother just had a baby, 2 months old. That's a different energy in the house, right? Little baby, wah, 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 all night, all day. It's a different energy. The middle of a summer, the middle of a heat wave. He has a 2-year-old sister. He has another sister. What was going on in that house prior to that? Was there anything else going on? I don't know. R.I.P. Janet Downer. It really doesn't matter, does it, at the end of the day? But the knife got put to his neck and said, I will kill your whole family. Did Eddie know this person? But Eddie took that threat serious. Allegedly took this threat serious because he ran out the house, went to Burger King, collected his thoughts, went to Union Square, right down the street, and allegedly got jumped by an Hispanic male and a black man. He got cut on his hand by a knife. He went inside the store where he worked, Midnight Convenience. Midnight Convenient.
So today,
These were the bushes that Eddie jumped out of right here. Jumped out of these bushes. Be clear, there was bushes here in 1995. There's no bushes there now. But there was all bush right there. And there's some more bushes up a little bit. See how the bushes, you'll see right here. See how the bushes are right there? There was bushes there too at the time. And that's the house. That is Janet Downer's house. And as he jumped out the bushes, somebody was on that porch, right on that top deck, watching him in the bush because they heard noise. One of his friends, one of his 3 friends, one of the boys, they call him at the time. And there was one sitting at the top of Hamlet Street. When the camera pans a little bit, you'll see. And one of the boys was right at the top of that street right there. Seeing Eddie, said, Eddie, what are you doing, Eddie? Fuck are you doing? Eddie, where you going, Eddie? You trying to scare us? Eddie kept walking. He didn't warn them. He just got a knife put to his neck by a person in that house. They're right there. That person is still in the house. That person is still in the house. He didn't turn around and say, guys, don't go in the house. Get away from there. Guys, Janet got hurt. He turned around. He kept walking. Why? How do you get over that part? How do you get over that part? But Eddie was scared. He was 15 years old. You got to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Nobody knows why people do what they do. And did that really happen? Because that's what the boys said. But did that really happen the way they said it happened? We don't know. We're going to find out through the appellate. Like I said, at this time, ladies and gentlemen that are watching, we don't know exactly Eddie's plan or Eddie's rebuttal to all this. We haven't really heard it because he really can't speak too much of it until he gets his appeal together. He never filed the appeal. He filed the direct appeal right after he got found guilty within the 60 days. But he never actually went through with it. 30 years later, he's going through with it. But something else happened to Eddie while he's going through with this appeal. A cat named J.F.K. and another cat named Kevy Kev decided, and my man Jay Brilliant, James Jackson, we decided to talk about this case. We decided to talk about it, and we found out some shit. Didn't we? Didn't we? 30 years later, but there's still some things you can't get over in the court of law. If you're an appellate judge, you got questions. You came out them bushes. Your friends were there, allegedly, and you didn't say anything to warn them. Why? Then you went to Burger King. And after you went to Burger King, you went to Union Square, like I said, and you got jumped. When you went inside the store, Midnight Convenience,
so as Eddie
Eddie walked over to Midnight Convenient after he got jumped. He went inside Midnight Convenient where he worked. Where he worked. And the guy that was working that night said, "Man, what the fuck happened to you, Ed? You're looking crazy, bro." They called 911. Police showed up. Eddie said his story. I got jumped. The police actually drove Eddie home. He had a white t-shirt on. Now, allegedly before that, the Commonwealth wants you to believe that he stabbed a woman 98 times. But when he went in that store, he had no blood on his sneakers, no blood on his shorts, no blood on his white t-shirt. 98 times. The description of the scene was an ocean of blood, pools of blood. She was stabbed 37 times in her neck. He had no blood on him. He had a size 15 shoe. There was no size 15 shoes on the house, footprints and blood. Huh. There's no blood on his shoes. They did find blood when he finally went home and got driven home to his dad. His grandfather was the chief, ex-chief of police, Sutherland Police Department. Said, "Kid, you got to go get a tetanus shot." So as he goes get the tetanus shot and goes out to the hospital, they find out there was 2 stabbings. Police did police work. Would you believe it? They did some police work, the Somerville police. And when they got there, the state police obviously got involved because there was a murder of Janet Downing. That's what happens, right? And right around that time, that's when Tom Riley showed up to the scene with the CPAC unit. They went over to the hospital, asked a bunch of questions. And they took Eddie's blood. They swabbed his leg. And there was, on his leg, there was the victim's blood on his shin. Just a little spot. None on his shirt. None on his shorts, not on his hands, none on his sneakers, not on his socks. A white t-shirt. Huh. 2 days after Eddie comes out with the story that he got jumped and mugged, a guy named Walter calls in the Somerville police and say, hey, I seen that mugging. I seen that kid getting jumped. They never tracked the dude down. They never went to talk to him. They never got him on the stand. None of that as time went on. So someone did see the mugging 48 hours after it all went down. Called up the police. Problem is, Eddie never told the police and all them interactions with him that he was in the house and that someone put a knife to his neck. He didn't say that until 2 weeks later. How do we get over that? How does a judge get over that? But that night, if we're talking about third parties, there was a cat named Artie. And Artie drove the taxi cab. And Janet, all day for 9 hours, the last 7-8 hours of her life, sat with a woman named Gina Mahoney across the street, had coffee. It was a heat wave. It was hot. And she told Gina, if anything happens to me, investigate, 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 investigate. Janet told Gina that right before she died. And who was she talking about to investigate? A guy named Artie. McCrory says, did Eddie make the story up being jumped because he really got cut in the house by the man with the knife? That would explain Ed's blood in the house. Out of fear, he lied about how he was hurt. And that's definitely something, Norman, that behind the scenes, me and my co-host Kev talked about. Did he lie on top of a lie? You know, to the point where it's like, you can't keep lying, right? Because then you look like a crazy liar. Did that happen? Did he lie about that too? Because 2 weeks he said, he didn't say anything. So did it happen in the house? And did he know who did it? And the question is, if he knows who did it, why didn't he ever say who did it? Why? These are questions. But the thing is, to get the DNA tested, they need a court order. And how do they get past all these unanswered questions that we have, like Norman said? It could just be a kid lying. Kids lie. They fucking lie. Do you know that kids lie?
You wrong.
Well, you're a liar, Higgins. You lie, right?
You wrong. You wrong. You wrong. You wrong. You
Higgins, you said you didn't say goodbye to anyone, bro.
wrong. You wrong. You wrong.
Higgins, you said you didn't say goodbye to anybody. We clearly seen you waving your hands and going crazy at John O'Keefe, and you text him and you come in here. Right? I mean, what are you talking about, Higgins? You're a liar.
You wrong. You wrong.
Wait a minute. He's an ATF agent and he lies?
You wrong. You wrong.
Hold on a minute. I don't believe you, Higgins. Let me ask somebody else. I mean, who can I ask? Who do we got out here with us? Holy shit. Is there any good police officers out there? Any good police officers out there? Oh, what's going on? We do got a good cop. It's Officer Barrows. Hey, is Higgins telling the truth? barrels?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay. Did Eddie O'Brien kill Janet Downing?
Absolutely not.
Oh, shit. Holy shit.
I know. Where are the blankets? I don't see blankets, Carrie.
Because I was having Jen get the baby blankets.
Well, Kerry was getting baby blankets. So how do we know that a 15-year-old kid just didn't lie? Don't even realize the seriousness of this shit. How do we know? How the fuck do we know? We don't. How do we know he didn't do it? We don't know. They said that he had a newspaper clipping of natural born killers in the room of a guy, a couple of cats who killed an old man. It was a story out in Boston around the time, Massachusetts area. Also, he had a knife collection, allegedly. The day before, July 22nd, he goes inside Midnight Convenient, and Arnold was working. Arnold, not Artie, Arnold. You know, Arnold, you know that, right? Kind of like Arnold on Different Strokes.
What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about?
Okay. That Arnold, something like that. Mr. Arnold. I don't know if his name was Mr. Arnold. His name was Arnold. Bear with me. But he said that Eddie went in there with a knife with a loose hilt on the knife, that it was loose. And he wanted to make a trade for some knives with him because he collect knives. People did that back then. They collect knives. You know, pocket knives, switchblades, shit like that. Kids were into different things, swords, who knows? I don't know. Was he into that? I don't know. They found a hilt of the knife in the foyer area, and the DNA on that was not Eddie's either. They found a hilt of a knife in the house in the foyer area, and it wasn't Eddie's DNA either. But then the CPAC unit goes to the house, Eddie's house, and they find the knife in the trash. The same make, model, allegedly. They write it up real nice. They're real good the way they write it up. And it was in the trash. And they said that knife that was in the trash was the same knife that's consistent with the one that killed Janet Downing. Wow. I don't know why someone would throw a knife in the trash. And then, did that really happen, or did they throw the knife in the trash? We're talking about the same CPAC unit from the state police. I don't know all the details yet. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, Eddie has not released his paperwork for the appellate court yet. When that comes out, we can go through and comb through all the inconsistencies that he wants to speak on. Now, I could tell you what happened. I could break it down. It's real hard to believe. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. It's very hard to believe that Eddie didn't do this. Based on the evidence, his blood was in the house, allegedly. He lied for 2 weeks. They found a knife matching the same type of knife. He allegedly got stabbed within the same half-hour window that Janet got stabbed with a knife. Witnesses seen him coming out the house, out the bushes, said that he turned around, he looked scared. He never tried to tell them. Witnesses, the guy Marco, said that the next day a couple of days later or whatever, he went to Eddie's house to talk to him. And the father said, let's go in the backyard and talk. And he asked him, I seen you, Eddie, jump out the bushes. And Eddie said, there's no way, that's impossible. Lied to Marco again. These are witnesses on the stand. I'm talking about in the court of law. Now, we've been doing our own investigation and understanding what happened. But this is what happened in the court of law. Now, I don't have the trial. Right now, I'm trying to get my hands on the trial right now. I'm working to get my hands on the trial so we can actually play the trial from that space and time so we can get an understanding where the railroad and where his defense did not defend, and we can make our assessment. But until then, I'm just telling you, this is what went against him on the court documents that I read. And to simplify it, and not to get too technical, basically his blood was in the house. He had blood on him from the victim, and he lied for 2 weeks. And he was stabbed. But keep in mind, like I said, there was a cab driver, Janet, for 5 hours that day of January 23rd of 1995, was chilling with Gina on her porch. And they drank coffee and they talked. And she said, listen, this guy, Adi, he's a weird dude, man. And if anything ever happens to me, investigate, investigate, investigate. He has my keys. Gina said, I see him coming to the house when you're not here in the cab. Investigate. She did not trust Adi. Adi, when we talked to him, said it was the other way around. She trusted him with his life, her life, basically. They were great friends. Now, if you don't know who Adi is, he's married to Carol. Carol is Janet Downan's sister. The night this went down, Adi pops up out of nowhere. When Ryan finds his mother down, and grabs Mr. O'Brien, Ed Sr., so to speak, Big Ed, and they go in the house. Virginia takes Ed out of there, and so does Gina. And both of them see Artie right there, and he's in the front yard looking for a key, his car key, his cab key. Why is he looking for a key, and why does he care so much about this key, and how did he lose his key? And why does he care so much about the cab? And then Gina testified, wrote a statement because they wouldn't let her testify, that he showed up and he was so fresh and so clean, like he just came out the shower. And Virginia says that when she was in the house, she heard a couple of bangs and a couple of noises, but she didn't think nothing of it. But what did stick out to her was when she was trying to do the dishes, there was no water pressure, as if someone in the house was using a shower or something. And here's Artie, so fresh, so clean, like he just got out the shower in a heat wave. He claims he was in a brand new cab with AC. First time I talked to him, that's the first thing he led with. But ironically, 48 hours before that, I did a show talking about how beat up the cabs were back then. And if he did drive from South Station to Somerville to pull up on the scene to check on his sister-in-law, he would be even in more worse condition than the people who are standing outside in the heat, because he's in an old beat up cab with no heat that's probably blowing heat from the beat up engine, driving around all day. So how is he so fresh? He would have been more looking weathered than everybody else. 48 hours before he came on the show, I said this. And then the first thing he does when he leads with is that, hey, nah, man, I was in the AC. I said, man, they didn't maintain them ACs back then. They were cheap, them cab companies. They didn't have ACs in them shit boxes. But he says, nah, man, I was in a good cab. But he didn't know what type of cab it was. He didn't know if it was a Dodge. He didn't know if it was a Ford. He didn't know. He didn't remember exactly what it was. Because if it was a Dodge, we all know that shitty ass slant six Plymouth Valari Chrysler Diplomat. That thing didn't have no AC. It had a blown head gasket blowing blue smoke up 93. If you're a car guy, if you know, you know. But he says, I don't know. And he doubled down and he said they were from Florida. Because of course they're from Florida, ladies and gentlemen. The cars are from Florida. Because if anybody knows anything about the South, you cannot have an AC in the South. You have to have an AC in the South. If you do not have an AC in the South, your life is going to be fucking miserable. So he said they came from the South, the taxis, of course, because that would mean they would have maintenance on the AC. Nobody's jumping in a cab or going to give you business and take your cab service if the ACs don't work. Fuck it, I'd rather walk. Think about it. So he even doubled down on that. That was suspicious. Then, a couple of days later, Adi jumps in the chat and he says, It was a Crown Vic. It wasn't a Dodge. It was a Crown Vic. So I said, okay, cool. It was a Crown Vic. Well, that even makes my suspicions worse because when he was on the show, he said that he flew up 93 to get to Somerville, which is about 10 minutes away if you're flying. It's fast. It's real close, especially at that time of night, no traffic. 10, 15 minutes, you're there. Fast. Fast. Maybe 10 minutes. It's fast. Very fast. And he said he was moving fast. Well, here's the problem. He was in a Crown Vic. Oh, yeah. But it wasn't just any Crown Vic. It was a retired police vehicle with an interceptor. Because that's what they bought back then. They bought the retired police vehicles. They didn't buy brand new Fords. They bought retired police vehicles with high mileage. But we all know that platform of Crown Vics, Mercury Marquis, LTDs, that platform, Lincoln Town Cars back then, you could run them to the ground. 300,000 miles. Them things are still pushing. Heavy duty. And that interceptor and that police package, everything was heavy duty. The AC compressor was heavy duty. Transmission, engine, heavy duty. Fast, torque, horsepower, pretty fast. The horsepower back then in 1995. But the torque, push you right back, Adi. But you don't remember that, do you? You don't remember when you came off that exit and that brand new Crown Vic? Well, for that cab company. That nice cab you have, number 42. That's the cab, right? That's the one. You want to be in number 42. 42 is the cab. It's got the fresh AC, interceptor. Oh, man. Felt good, didn't it? And you flying up the highway. You don't remember that? You don't remember getting pushed back a little bit? Oh, but then he also said that he made an illegal U-turn to get to 71 Boston Street. When you made that illegal U-turn in that fucking interceptor, that LTD, that Crown Vic, that Mercury Marquis, that town car, same shit, ladies and gentlemen. It has a pausey rear end. Did it kick out a little bit? Did it do a fishtail? Do you know what a fishtail is? But you don't remember what cab it was. But now you remember a couple of days later, it was a Crown Vic. But you don't remember them details of how fast the car was and what you was in. Okay, cool. You don't remember. Fine. J.F.K. shut up. You're pushing it. All right. Fair. But then I say, Adi, you lost the key. It was one key. Janet kept saying that you had her keys and she knew that you had an extra set. So the question is, was it more than just one key? Was it the key and the house keys to Boston Street? And if they found them, who has the keys to this house? That would make you in deep shit, wouldn't it? But we don't know that for a fact. You said it was just one key. Okay. But as you're looking for this one key, people lost keys back then in 1995, right, people? Could have been a Dodge key, Chevy key, Mitsubishi key, right? But this was a Ford key, little circle, Ford. Did you tell people you lost a Ford key? So now he goes a step further and he says, no, it didn't say Ford on it. It just said number 42 on it. So now you don't even tell them it's a Ford key because you said you remember. You don't tell them what they're looking for. If someone finds a key, what if they find a Chevy key? That's not your key, right? It would be a Ford key. But now you said it said number 42 on it. Okay, let's take it a step further. It says 42 on it. Awesome. Great. So which means is if they printed their own keys, which I don't know how it would say, maybe the original OG key said Ford and the other ones were blank, but they printed 42 on them. Maybe they did. Maybe they did. I don't know. But if they did do that and they did print a key, a new key, they probably printed more keys, didn't they? Spare keys. Because people lock themselves out of cars. Oh, and would you believe it that the green cab that he worked for was only 2 miles up the street? His wife, Carol's going to the hospital for her sister who just got murdered, stabbed 98 times. And Adi is worrying about a fucking key. He doesn't even know what the key is. He just says it's in number 42. Well, why wouldn't you just call up the garage or to the place, to the dispatcher? And I'm sure in the office they have a spare key. Well, let's go a step further. No, they did have a spare key. Several of them, he said. I said 7. He said no, several, meaning 3 or 4. Okay, cool. We're getting technical with the words here. Okay. All right, 3 or 4. But they're not in the office. They wouldn't keep them in the office, where that's where business takes place, is the office, not the garage. They were in the garage, and the garage was closed. Okay, wow. So now the garage is closed because it was late. All right, cool. So now you can't get the spare key. So then the car gets towed. You sat around all night to get that car towed, allegedly back to Green Cab. But your wife is at the hospital with her murdered sister. And instead of going with her, you smoked weed with a girl named Mandy. Am I correct, Jay? Brilliant? Jason Brilliant? Was her name Mandy? What was her name? The young one. Where's my man Brilliant at? Brilliant. Danny. Danny. That's right, Danny. You're right. Thank you so much. Special K holding me down. Thank you, Special K. Danny, 17 years old. You smoked weed with Danny. Your wife, her sister, your fucking sister-in-law got murdered 98 times. Now, you might have not knew that she got stabbed 98 times at the point, but you know she got stabbed and murdered. And you're worried about a car key, but the place is only 2 miles away. If any time you wouldn't be in trouble of losing a car key in the taxi business would be when you called your boss and said, I fumbled the key because my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, got murdered, stabbed over here on Boston Street, and I had to just get out of there and go meet her at Mass General. I'm sure they would have understand that situation. Wouldn't they, Adi? But no, you stayed with the car. You stayed with the cab. Huh. Janet, hours before her death, said, investigate, investigate, investigate. You, Adi, if anything ever happens to me. And the problem with Tom Riley and the problem with the CPAC and the problem with what's going on, they didn't want to bring that to the table because they wanted to change the juvenile law. We have our man, super predators. Dun, 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 dun. But listen, if we try to bring this law in, the communities in the neighborhoods, the tougher neighborhoods, Charlestown, Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, Jamaica Plain, these tough communities where it's predominantly black, we're going to get backlash because the super predators, who are they talking about? Now, the mayor at the time, excuse me, was it the mayor? Yeah, I think it was the mayor. He was a black man. And he didn't want the law to be changed. And he didn't like the term super predator. He said, I don't like that fucking term because who are you saying is the super predator? Are you saying the black people are super predators? So now they're like, well, what can we do here? It's politics as usual. We got a white guy in Somerville who killed a girl. Them are the super predators we're talking about. So let's act like them are the people we're targeting and let's get the law in. And once we get the law in, anybody who does habitual offenses as a juvenile, we're not giving them any more chances. You're not going to DYS. You're going straight to prison. Straight to prison at 17 years old. You're going to state prison for maximum sentences. And do you know that Governor Weld at that time passed a law called Truth in Sentence, mandatory sentences? It was big business, politics as usual. These are facts at this space and time. And keep in mind, Thomas Riley, the DA of that county, prosecuted Eddie O'Brien's case. And the DNA underneath Janet Downer's fingernail excluded Eddie O'Brien. And then you have Adi looking for the key, and everything I just said happened. This is all factual shit, what I'm speaking on. Adi can't deny the fact that he was there that night looking for a key, but he claims he never seen Gina. He claims he never seen Virginia. I never seen Virginia. Virginia wrote that she seen him. He says, I never seen her. Gina says that's bullshit. I was right there when he seen both of us. But yet he claims he's seen Ryan in the police car. But did you believe it? Would you believe it? That it was Virginia and Gina who put Ryan in the police car? So how didn't he see Ryan? Excuse me, how didn't he see Virginia and Gina at that space and time, but he's seen Ryan? Why would someone lie that he's seen Virginia? And when we get Virginia up here, and if Virginia says, yeah, I seen him, why would she lie? Why would she lie that she seen him looking for the key? I was never looking for it in the front yard. That's a lie. The fact is, whether he was looking for the front yard or whatever, he lost the key that night and he stuck around and he never went straight to the hospital for his wife, who's sisters with Janet Downing. You lived with her, Adi. Why'd you care about the cab? Why'd you care about the cab?
Yeah. Yo. Summer of 1995, hot night in July. Why did Janet have to die? This is the story of Eddie, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The system is petty, juvenile law and politics so deadly. 15 years old, known as Big Lovable Teddy. Janet Downing, 42 years old, what's the motive? Killed in her home, young mother devoted. Eddie went in the house, the door was open. She was on the kitchen floor, laying there frozen. Eddie claims this was not what he planned to see. A man with a mask grabbed him. Be quiet. I will kill your whole family. Eddie left the house, ran up the street. Around the corner, washed up in the bathroom at Burger King. Janet was stabbed multiple times. Rest in peace. It was a gruesome murder scene. I agree. Eddie went to his work, said he got jumped, but never said a thing. What? About Janet lying there lifeless, his friend's mother from across the street. Shh, he was in the house. But Janet had a brother-in-law she kicked out for selling drugs. Said if anything ever happened to her, it's him you bring up. The night of the murder he showed up, was acting suspicious in the front yard. Gina and Virginia says he was looking for his keys. It was humid and muggy, but we were showered and neat. He was a cab driver looking for his key. Looking for a key.
He was a cab driver looking for his key. Looking for his key. Norman Corey says the same reason why kids don't tell that they got sexually assaulted by a priest or a family member out of fear. This is true, Norman. We got 777. Did Ryan feel an intense sense of shame from his sexual preference not widely accepted? Back then, whoever did it was super emotional. I don't think Ryan was the one that had the affair with the two men at Service Merchandise. It was his brother, Paul. So, yeah, I don't know. He probably did, if you're speaking on Paul. Back then, it was different. And I'm trying to break down all the facts. I'm learning on the job. I've been going live every day, sometimes twice a day. And I just want you to know, this is a campaign for you to do your due diligence as the long game is to figure out this case. And if you have any questions, you ask them. We're not going to curate hate. At the end of the day, it wasn't a fair trial because if the DNA, and we're going to get down to that, we're going to talk to the lawyer and speak on the DNA on why he didn't run with the DNA, why didn't he speak on the DNA and so on and so on. And what does the DNA matter? Because we're all under the assumption that the DNA matters, right? I mean, we can only assume if they run the DNA underneath the fingernail and the clump of hair, you find your man, right? Isn't it that simple? Is there a swerve we don't know about? I'm on the side that there's no swerve after talking to Margot, who 40 years she has, Margot Nash, that we spoke to. I forget the pot, but it's up there right now on my page. It says Margot Nash. It's one of my pots. This is pot 9. I think it might be pot 6 or something. 40 years in the game, a lawyer, okay? She got nothing to lie about. She wrote a book called Politics of Murder. It's out right now. You guys can go check it out on Amazon. Margot Nash, Politics of Murder. And go read up on that, and she'll break down exactly. So I'm under the impression it's that simple. Run the DNA, you find your man. You find the third-party culprit. That's it. Now, is there another reason? I don't know. We're going to keep trying to unravel. It just boggles my mind. But like I said, Janet Downing was hurt so bad that night. What they did to Janet, it's just so hard to have compassion for, it's compassion for someone who might allegedly did it for whatever reason they did it for. Like if Eddie was the one who did it, I mean, he was 15, he did something like that. Do you let him out after 30 years? Can he be rehabilitated after something like that? Would you want somebody living next to you after 30 years, 35 years in prison after they stab someone 98 times? Can they be rehabilitated for a crime like that? That's where it gets so touchy. For a crime like that, it's kind of an eye for an eye, right? And not saying that any murder is better than any other murder, but that murder was so personal. So it's very touchy because I don't want to disrespect Janet Downing. I don't want to disrespect the Downing family. But at the end of the day, if you're thinking about the law, and you're thinking about how the Commonwealth is and what we've seen with Kelsey, what we've seen with Marquise, Miles King, um, Jigga, and 30 years ago, they play games and they don't want to give people fair trials. Now, like I said, this murder is so personal, you would probably make an exception and say, well, who cares if he had a fair trial? Because if he did this, fuck him, right? That would be your first mindset, right? But the fact is, he didn't have a fair trial, and everybody deserves a fair trial. So you kind of got to put the crime to the side if you can. It's very tough to do. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that until I get all the facts. My moral compass tells me you cannot just put that to the side and scream, hey, he needs this, he needs that. Yeah, the fact is he needs a fair trial. The fact is there's other culprits that show themselves. There's DNA, there's different things to make you point to somebody else. Now, if we can open up the DNA and if we could bring it in front of the appeals court, if we can have another trial, then we do it and we see what's what. And if their evidence is what they say it is, then and he has a fair trial, then they should win, right? If he did it, they should win. If he didn't do it, he should win. And that's what it all comes down to. But I never want to look at the Janet Downing who died that night, the way she died, because if Eddie didn't do it, Janet didn't get justice. That's just a fact. Just like Paul O'Keefe right now did not get any justice. Excuse me, John O'Keefe did not get any justice. Excuse me, disclaimer. John O'Keefe did not get any justice. Yeah, Karen got found not guilty, but she wasn't exonerated. If Karen gets exonerated, then now we know she 100% didn't do it, and we got to put all eyes on somebody else. But as of right now, she got found not guilty. That just means they couldn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And do they look at somebody else? Probably not. And who loses in that? We lose. The two kids, John O'Keefe's kids, lose. Everybody loses in that. And I don't want the same situation for Janet. Because in the end, what this is going to be what's different than Karen Reed's case, if they run that DNA and it comes back to somebody else, to one of these people we speak of, a guy in a cab, a Paul Jr., whoever was around at that time, someone we don't know, who knows, another person we never would have thought of, and Eddie O'Brien gets exonerated, then someone else gets arrested, and we get justice for Janet. But unfortunately, in Karen's case, there's nothing that can exonerate her unless the feds come in and arrest these fools, Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, Chris, Jen, Julie, Maddie McCabe on the backup. Until that happens, no justice for John. So you kind of want to just be real clear what you're trying to do, and you want to have respect for the people that are gone that can't speak. And that's where I'm at with it. I just want to have respect for them. I don't want to make a joke out of it. I don't want to make it seem like this is not reality. 30 years ago is kind of like a soft landing because it happened long ago, and it's kind of like, time heals. But does it in a situation like that, or what happened? I don't know. Not to me, it don't. Whoever did that to fucking Janet is a real piece of shit. And then we had one of Eddie's cellmates up here that was in jail with him. And we took it from that perspective, from the yards, from the prison walls. And Eddie does well in jail. And he said, if the people in there thought Eddie was guilty, Eddie wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes Never mind 30 years. And they do things, they do court in there, kangaroo court. They got nothing but time, so they go through all the paperwork. And they're seeing what we seen. And they don't believe it. They believe Eddie. Now, do they matter the inmates? I think they do. I 100% think they do. Just because you're in prison don't mean you stop living. Just because you got a prison number don't mean you're not a human being. And we heard from that side. And I'm sure we can hear more from that side. And unfortunately, that's the only side Eddie has pulling for him and pushing for him. But now he has the J.F.K. channel. We're asking questions. We're asking questions. I think we're learning. I think we're learning. I think we're learning. Do you think we're learning, people? How we doing out there? How we doing? How am I doing? Am I doing all right? Should I pack this shit up, man, and fucking go to sleep? What should I do? Ah, Jesus. Eddie's Gucci, there he is. We're all learning. There she is, Miss 808. Becky up in here. Shooter's in here. Josie. My girl Josie Lou. Josie been on a vacation far away. Renee HFL, I think. Long game is we ain't got no quit. Let's fucking go for sure. So let's get into some of that hearing. I need everybody to lock in for this, right? If you got to go to the bathroom, do it now. I'm about to put the seatbelt lights back on. I need everybody to calm down for this duration of the flight. It's going to get a little bumpy. It's going to get bumpy because in this next piece of footage that I'm going to show, if you got to go to the bathroom, go now. Josie, I know you got to go. Go to the goddamn bathroom, Josie. Becky, run. Pags. Miss 808. Shooter, he's on the wing of the plane. He don't even give a shit. He's a fucking nut. Norman Corey, what up, my man? Amy, what's up? I'm going to take a little. She got me on the phone. All right, cool. Off to the stock bar then. I'm good stepping out the smoke. Where's Kevy Kev? Well, Kevy Kev is probably, Kevy Kev's fixing the engines for the jet. All right, so we're going to go over Erin's testimony inside the parole hearing. What Erin has to say on why Erin Downing is the daughter of Janet Downing. And we're going to, this is the first time, be clear, this is the first time, ladies and gentlemen, that I watched this. So we're all watching this together in real time. Okay? We're in 1 hour and 10 minutes into the flight. And we're going to listen to what Erin Downing has to say about her mother and about why she thinks Eddie did it. I would assume so. Erin is the daughter of Janet. And at the parole hearing, she spoke on the behalf of the family. So without further ado, I hope you guys are done. We're going to listen to what she got to say. Let's see how it affected her and her family and how her family is dealing with the loss today. How her family's dealing with the loss today, in the present day, 30 years later. Her friend made a statement to the police that Janet told her that she was surrounded by 4 or 5 green cabs menacing her. Her friend made a statement to the police that Janet told her that 4 or 5 green cabs were menacing her. Yeah, we heard that from, well, does she say that in this hearing? I don't know. Is that what you're saying? Big Ed? Let's hear it. You guys ready? Keep your seatbelts on. It's going to get a little bumpy. That's Eddie right in back of her. Well, to the side.
I admit guilt and much regret. But there are a number of things I don't know about my mother. I was still a teenager when she was taken from me, and at that time, other things like my boyfriends, friends, school, and work were my priority. But when you're young, you naively think you have all the time in the world. I thought I had time to get to know those things, but he ripped that time away from me. So here are some things I do know about my mother. She was kind, she was gentle, and these traits carried over to her volunteer work for Meals on Wheels. Often taking us when making deliveries, I can still remember the smell of the hot lunches that were packed into the back of her brown station wagon. She enjoyed taking ceramics classes. One of my most prized possessions is the last piece she made for me, only a few months before she was killed. She was incredibly proud of her kids. When I graduated from junior high with several academic awards, she cried. When I graduated from St. Clement High School, she stood on the sidewalk outside the church before the ceremony even started, with tears streaming down her face. I was the first of her kids to go to college. Unfortunately, my mother never got to see me graduate from Suffolk University with honors because he killed her 3 years before my graduation. She worked tirelessly, raising 4 kids, working a full-time job, keeping up with housework, and for the last few years of her life, also attending night school. I certainly didn't appreciate at the time how exhausted she must have always been. She hosted every Thanksgiving and Christmas at our house, but Christmas was her favorite. She loved watching us go through our stockings and open our gifts. Then my grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins would come over, and my mom would have cooked enough food to last an entire week. She was the center of our family, and we all rotated around her. I still vividly remember standing outside my house with my sister the day after our mom was killed. She looked at me like a lost little girl and asked, "What do we do now without her?" I didn't have an answer. We weren't prepared for any of this. Our center was gone, and it felt like we were aimlessly drifting in darkness. And to be honest, I don't think that feeling has ever fully gone away. And I know his family has had a loss in their own way. But the fact remains that he is sitting only a few feet from them, living and breathing. When I visit my mother, it's at a gravesite, and that's because of him. "98 stab and slash wounds. One stab was delivered with so much force that it broke one of her left ribs in half. There were abrasions, bruises, and defensive wounds throughout her 5'2", 114-pound body, which is the same size as me for reference. 22 incised wounds across her neck that were described in court as someone practicing for decapitation. And these aren't even all of my mother's wounds. He has never shown remorse. He has never taken responsibility for brutally taking the life of a good and innocent woman. Yet this is the person we're now questioning whether they should be let out of prison. It's inhumane to us, it's disgusting, and it's not justice. I'm haunted by a photo of the gruesome and bloody crime scene that will forever be burned into my memory. I often think about the absolute terror and shock she must have felt while fighting for her life against someone she had known since he was a baby, someone her son considered one of his best friends. I hate that someone as good as my mother spent her last few minutes on earth that way. And I hate that after a grueling 2 years in the court system to get a conviction of life without parole that was based on solid evidence, incredible eyewitness testimony, followed by his failed, I repeat, failed appeal, I'm now expected to repeatedly sit before this board with him, expose my trauma, and hope that you'll be compassionate enough and find it horrifying enough to keep a monster in prison where he belongs. There is no mysterious killer still out there on the loose. The only guilty person is the one sitting here in handcuffs. The one a court-appointed psychiatrist testified would present an elevated risk for dangerous behavior if he was not in custody. And also notably said that his, and I quote, unruffled temperament suggests the emotional under-arousal characteristic of psychopathic individuals. Everyone in this room and everyone who was brought up to him is a liar except for him. But he is sitting here today and spewing lies. I can very clearly recall Ed showing up at my house one day with a bag of stuff that he bought. Standing in my dining room, he told me and my brothers that he bought those items with money he stole from his grandfather's pension, and laughed while he was saying it.
So what?
I can remember being shocked that someone would do that, especially to their own grandfather. But I'm sure he'll get back up here and tell you that I'm lying now too. So I don't care if he becomes a monk while he's in prison. Nothing will bring back my mother, and nothing will make him incapable of being the monster he's very capable of being. The monster my mother met that night. And if he is released, and God forbid, kills someone else, that will be on each of you who agreed to let that monster out.
No, she's not the runaway.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
He could have waived this parole hearing. He could have waived it. He didn't have to go to this parole hearing, be clear. His appeal, he still had his appeal that he could have went to. He still got that in the works. But he knew he was going to get this. So he's standing, he's standing in the face of it,
I'm speaking today on behalf of my family to express our profound opposition to the parole of Ed O'Brien, who is currently incarcerated for a crime committed against our beloved family member, Janet Downing. My name is Jennifer Burke. I am Janet's niece. I was 24 when she was murdered. My father, Stephen Salamini, is Janet's brother. He couldn't bring himself to be in this room today, so I will bring his voice to you in this statement. I'd like to start by sharing some family history with you. My parents grew up in a triple-decker in Cambridge, owned by my paternal grandfather. He rented the top floor to my paternal grandfather. So we had my dad's siblings of 5 on the top floor, and my mom's of 6 on the first floor. Little did my mother know at 12 years old she would meet her future best friends, my aunts Janet and Carol, as well as their future husband. These families became interlocked in that triple-decker and remain so to this day. We are a large and close-knit family, all living here in Massachusetts. My spare time is most often spent with aunts, first cousins, and second cousins. Our family has been deeply affected by the actions of Edward O'Brien, and we believe that granting parole would undermine the justice that has been served. The crime that O'Brien committed was not only a grave violation of the law, but also a heinous act that has left an indelible scar on my family. As you know, our family has been subject to reliving the horrific day my aunt was taken from us in several hearings and trials, in all of which he has been found guilty. These trials were riddled with delays from the Massachusetts Supreme Court interventions, countless days of witness and expert testimony. Again, each time O'Brien was found guilty. What stands out in my mind still is the former Attorney General, I guess then DA, Tom Riley's statements emphasizing the lack of rehabilitative prospects for Ed O'Brien, also reinforced by expert testimony. My aunt's murder involved sadistic and appalling torture, indicating a high level of brutality and desire to dominate. Psychologists highlighted the signs of psychopathy in O'Brien, indicating a severe and dangerous mental state. This case even led to a temporary legislative push to reinstate the death penalty in Massachusetts. This remains significant for its demonstration of the complexities of an emotional toll of the justice process, especially in cases involving severe crimes and prejudicial factors. Our family and friends experience repeated emotional distress due to the prolonged legal process. And here we are again, and who knows how many times we will have to face this day in the future. The emotional and psychological trauma that we have endured since my Aunt Janet's tragic demise cannot be overstated. It was us surrounded by sirens, flashing lights, and yellow crime tape. It was us who said goodbye in a cold and sterile hospital room as she lay there, still intubated, loosely covered with a blood-stained sheet and gashes all over her. It was us who cleaned her blood from the walls and the doors and the floors of her family home, where she was supposed to be safe. Where we celebrated countless holidays, played video games, and shared family meals, a place that used to be filled with smiles and laughter in my memories. Even now, almost 29 years later, it's also very surreal. We understand that the parole process considers various factors, including behavior and rehabilitation of the prisoner while incarcerated. However, we feel that the severity of the crime and its lasting impact on our family and the community should be weighed heavily in the decision. O'Brien's actions were deliberate and malicious, and we fear that releasing him on parole poses a significant risk to public safety and would not adequately reflect the gravity of his offense. Our family respectfully urges the parole board to consider the lasting pain and suffering that O'Brien has inflicted upon us. Granting parole would not only reopen our wounds, but also send a message that such egregious acts can be met with leniency. We believe that justice can only be served by ensuring that O'Brien remains incarcerated. Thank you for taking the time to consider our plea. We hope that you will make a decision that honors the memory of my Aunt Janet and upholds the principles of justice and public safety. Thank you.
Stephen Hearns, grandson,
Good morning. Good afternoon now. It's been a long day already. So good morning. My name is Stephen Hearns. I'm Janet Downing's eldest grandson and the son of her first child, Carrie Ann Downing. I was a year and 5 months old when my grandmother was brutally killed on a hot summer day in 1995. Over the last 29 years, many family members, close friends of my grandmother have told me how much of an amazing, hardworking, brilliant woman she was. Aside from being the matriarch of our family, my grandmother was in the delivery room when my mom gave birth to me. She loved being a first-time grandmother and was consistently taking pictures of me. For one of my grandmother's classes while in night school, she wrote an essay about motherhood and included me. She wrote that I was a wonderful little boy with the same sparkle in her eyes that my mom had. Excuse me. That my mom had when she was a little girl. And a laugh that would fill the room. There are many home videos of her giving me baths in the kitchen sink while sharing words of advice to live by throughout my life that I still follow to this day. Speaking about life, Speaking about life, my grandmother didn't get to choose how her life was going to be fulfilled. She never got to see the beautiful grandchildren that she had today and all of our accomplishments. As we continue to grow as a family, the man who murdered my grandmother has tried to use the system as a game and continues to inflict pain on my family. The fact remains that he's guilty on all counts. We felt a void for the last 29 years, at every birthday, every holiday, every event without her. Yet he gets to visit his family, share hugs, take pictures, go on Facebook. Out of account. I will never know what it feels like to hug my grandmother. The pictures with her stopped even before I was 2 years old, and that's because of the horrific actions on that night. Close to 1,700 people have signed our petition to keep him behind bars. These citizens of Somerville, Boston, Cambridge, all throughout Massachusetts know the monster that this man really is and how sweet of a woman my grandmother was. He still has yet to admit to the crime, brutally stabbing my grandmother 98 times while she fought back the whole entire time. And not because he's innocent, it's because he's a psychopath. Unfortunately, he's eligible for parole, but we will continue to stay united and will be heard on this matter no matter how many hearings we need to appear. My grandmother would have done the same thing for anyone that's in this room today. In a premeditated act, he took my grandmother's life in a horrific way possible. I know his family is here to defend him and do everything they can to get him released. I expect that. But the man is a ruthless murderer and will do it again if let out. That's exactly why we have a full army of supporters, just as he stated before, to keep this going. I mean, we're just getting started. We have enough people that wanted to come to, and we couldn't allow it because of the cap. So we have plenty of people that are here to support us as well. And we will not stop until justice is served at every proceeding. So I appreciate you taking the time to hear us out, and we're just getting started.
God damn. You guys buckled up for that clear air turbulence. That was tough to hear, and that's expected to hear from the family. The grandson of Kerry. Where is Kerry? I'd like to know where his mother is. That was tough to hear. For sure.
hated for the most was that mental health therapy group, because being in prison this long, and so I was in Susan Baranowski from 2013 to 2019, and that's just a different place. It's a different breed. It's a different animal. It's a very violent place, very stressful, anxiety-filled. And when you go to another prison, you get away from that. It's almost like you get to breathe. But you still have the stress and anxiety that you always think, you don't always think it, but you still have that. So that therapy group, that mental health therapy group I went through was great with the clinicians that we had from WellPath to help with the stress and anxiety, learning your triggers, learning about PTSD. It was eye-opening.
So by virtue of you being confined since you were 15 years old, the unintended consequences of long-term incarceration is real and reveals itself most often immediately because you can't prepare for the outside very well from the inside, absence of furloughs and activities. So if you have a pretty comprehensive, detailed release plan that would incorporate for you, essentially de-institutionalized. It appears that you have some insight regarding again, the consequences, the destruction of post-traumatic stress symptoms that you may experience should you be released. I don't have questions about the release plan, but support the occupational skills and
Sorry about the volume. Sorry about the volume. The people in the background's hard to hear. But you can hear Eddie.
I'm sure you reviewed it. It's favorable in terms of all those actuarial measures that posit that you're at low risk for violence and low risk started are certainly helpful in
I want to hear what Eddie got to say. Hold on. I'm sorry, guys. It's not worth listening if you can't hear him talk.
Are absolutely false. Are absolutely false. Are absolutely a lot of what that was said about back in the 90s are absolutely false. And just please give me a chance to see who I am today. That's all I ask of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mara. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see what else we got here. I'm just going through some stuff.
I mean, you develop a negative attitude when you do go into prison, and I understood that hopelessness, negative attitude was definitely something I needed to change, but there was really no avenues. I went to the church, and I was so lucky to meet that Deacon John up at Walpole. He kind of brought me down that path of positivity and hope. I think that was the first time I recognized something that I needed to change, and I saw help through Deacon John.
Well, how did you just emotionally and psychologically live every day saying, I didn't do this, and I lost my entire childhood, and I'm going to die in here?
So I never thought I was going to die. I still don't think I'm going to die in prison. I still wanted my appeals back then. I still had attorneys working on the direct appeal back then. But the best way to explain this, I believe, and I mentioned this to someone, it's almost as if, say you're on a shipwreck and you get put on a deserted island. Are we going to sit there and wonder why did this happen to us? Or are you going to go try to find food and water and try to live and survive? That's what you do when you go to prison. You try to live and survive. And that's what I did. I went to school. Well, when I could, I went to school. I went to church. I went out to the yard with the guys and played basketball. We ate. So you live that life of prison, and you try to get by as best as you can.
Right. The two disciplinary reports of violent nature, one was an altercation with a corrections officer, and another incident was a fight. If you want to provide any insight into those incidents?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. So the assault on the correctional officer, it was a horse playing incident where he got embarrassed. I was wrong for engaging in that that situation. I shouldn't have done joke around with him the way I did. I embarrassed him in front of other guys. There was no malicious intent on my part. I didn't mean to hurt him. It was a joking event. We were joking around.
Right.
And the hearing officer even ruled in that decision that there was no malicious intent on my part.
There's no pattern of this, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But why don't you just explain the fight?
So the fight was. I wish I never even because the role I had at that time as the unit rep, like somehow it got put on me that I needed to address the situation, and it was just that guy he wasn't agreeable, and at that time I didn't know how to communicate my feelings, I would say, or try to solve the problem in a better situation. Threats were made, altercations happened, and I just decided we weren't going to live in the block together that night. He was saying he was going to come at me. I could have probably handled it better, not knowing what I know now, but at that time I thought I wasn't going to allow him to come after me.
Right. In 2015, you postponed the wage agreement that you did so again in 2019. Why is that?
Several reasons. So in 2014, I got the innocence. I was accepted by the innocence program, and they assigned attorneys on my case. And we were going through that process. And they thought it was best that I didn't go for the hearing while they did their review and investigation. In 2019, I believe it was when I just got transferred to NCCI Gardner. We waived that too, based on the same thing, the Rule 30. Like I received new attorneys at that time because I asked for an attorney switch because they weren't doing what I thought they were going to do or what they told me they were going to do. And I went to the director of the innocence program and asked for a new representation. And the attorneys I have today is because of that. And at that time, they were like, just waive it. It was suggested that I waive this hearing too, but I'm done living in the dark. I want this stuff I want all this to be out there now. So if I listened to the attorneys again, I wouldn't be here today.
Okay, there we go.
You have associate's degree in business administration, is that correct?
That I'm in the associate's degree business program currently. I received I completed the certificate program.
Okay. And that was the programs, Mr. O'Brien, they're not a lot in comparison to what we generally see. There was some indication that you were seeking to sue the DOC for lack of programming.
That is correct.
Okay. And when did you decide to do that?
So in 2021, we started a self-improvement group at NCCI Gardner for first degree and second degree lifers. That's EGL, the Enlightenment Group for Lifers. And we had a lot of support from the NCCI administration at that time, how to build it, go through it. They were like, let's go step by step. So we were building it. And then it got to a turning point where other administrators came in that weren't program oriented or program minded, and they were trying to eliminate the programming and EGL. And at the same time, they kept on promoting other programs at NCCI Gardner through the program description booklet that were never operational at Gardner since I've been there. And when it got to the point where they were denying all different program applications we were actually submitting, and at the same time trying to close down other programs. So a group of us prisoners, we did get together and we were like, let's do a class action, and I took the lead on it. I've learned how to do law, I learned the law, civil, and I ended up filing that on behalf of, there's 5 named plaintiffs, but we're trying to make it a class action. We're waiting for that process now.
What's the status of that?
So the status of this currently is it's pending. We filed a motion for appointment of counsel because I can't represent a class, none of the other guys can represent a class of prisoners. And so there's a motion pending to certify as a class and a motion pending for an appointment of counsel. And then as we went along with this, we included everything that was missing or misrepresented at NCCI Gardner, everything from, groups that had nothing to do with me or EGL. We included like the music program, the LGBT support group, Toastmasters, every group that they promoted that they had there is not there, and we included that in.
So what kind of program would you like to see and why for yourself?
EGL was what we were trying to build. That was what we wanted to do. We are incorporating so there was a mentor board of 5 of us who oversee EGL. And what we did was we incorporated every program that we've all done throughout the years. And we wanted this to be the program for everybody. We took ideas from ADP.
Specifically with regard to yourself.
Yes.
You've already established that there wasn't a lot of need area to begin with.
Right.
And if you're maintaining your innocence, then obviously you would say, well, I need sex offender treatment therapy, or I need more violence prevention.
Correct.
So what did you want for yourself?
You develop a negative attitude when you do go into prison, and I didn't.
Ryan Downing, son of Shannon Catholic.
Good afternoon. I wish I had decades worth of stories to tell you about my mother, but unfortunately I don't, because he took those decades away from me in the cruelest, most imaginable way. In the cruelest way imaginable. So these are some details about my loving mother from my brief 16 years I had of her in my life. My mother treated those around her with kindness, fairness, and respect. As a young boy, I remember my mother giving her time and energy to helping others in need by working with Meals on Wheels. I remember countless days of riding in our station wagon, delivering meals to those in need. My mother taught her children.
This is Ryan Downing, his best friend.
Every snowstorm, my mother would tell me and my brother to shovel our elderly neighbors' properties before we'd go outside and play with our friends. She always told us not to accept cash for doing this deed, but our neighbors would put money in our pockets and tell us not to tell her. This was the nature of my mother, a warm and caring person who always thought of others. My mother's days were spent balancing working full-time as an administrative assistant in a hospital and raising her 4 children. There were no days off for my mother. Her most precious moment was dinner as a family, a ritual she always made sure we did every night. As a young boy, I certainly didn't appreciate, as I do now, all the questions she would ask of me, like, how was your day? Or, what did you do today? Or sometimes I would just notice her staring at me without saying a word. Chalk that up to an angsty teenage boy just trying to avoid a mother's pestering questions. I wish I could go back to have dinner with her just one more time. My mother's center was her family and holiday celebrations at our home. I remember we would cook up an absolute feast from scratch and invite our many aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents over to eat, open presents, and celebrate. Christmas was her favorite time of year, and she loved to decorate our tree with tinsel. She was very proud of her children for their academic achievements, especially my sister Erin, who set the bar rather high for the rest of us. I like to think our achievements inspired my mother to go back to school later in life, but unfortunately, her goal of finishing school was cut short the night she was murdered by the inmate. The night of July 23rd, 1995 still burns in my memory. They say that time heals all wounds, but after all this time, I can honestly say that it does not. That wound still festers, and time cannot fully heal it. I remember the shock and fear I felt as I arrived home that night, just hours earlier, seeing my mother at peak vitality, but now laying battered, bloodied, and unresponsive on our dining room floor. Her blood covering the walls to our staircase that led to the second floor and furniture overturned. I remember the paramedics working to get air into my mother as they carried her to the ambulance, hastily loading her limp and near lifeless body into the ambulance and then swiftly departing. I remember the overwhelming sense of dread that filled my soul, that I would lose my mother that night. I remember the numbness I felt after my father told me to be strong for my brother, who had experienced what I just went through. I remember seeing the bravest person I know, my brother Paul, being sedated in a Somerville hospital room for shock. Undoubtedly, my family and I have suffered from PTSD, depression, and anxiety issues in the aftermath of my mother's death. Also, my children will suffer from this generational trauma that he has caused them. My sons were robbed of the experience of having their grandmother in their lives. And though we all have been victimized by his actions, I am reminded of the true victim of that night, my mother. We will never know how the inmate gained access to my house because he refuses to admit responsibility for his crime. But what we do have is irrefutable evidence and eyewitness testimony at the crime scene, which exposed all the inmate's lies of what he believed happened on that night. There were no boogeyman who we stumbled upon killing my mom. He alone attacked my mother and stabbed her 66 times and slashed her 31 times and did other horrible and perverse acts to her body as she lay dying. When paramedics and an officer arrived, they observed that my mother had suffered stab wounds to her neck, upper chest, abdomen, legs, and back, so many that he could not count them all. The shorts of my mother's right leg, were pulled up to her crotch. As they removed her shirt, Officer Blair at the scene noted that my mother's bra was loosely draped across her breast, and the cuffs of my mother's bra had numerous stab cuts in them, yet there were no stab wounds to her breast. Dr. Robert Kirchhoff, a forensic psychologist, and Dr. Donald Conde, a psychiatrist experienced in dealing with children and adolescents, both testified that the nature of the crime indicated both overkill and a sexually sadistic homicide. He has never taken responsibility or shown remorse. All the prison classes he's taken won't change the fact that the inmate murdered a beautiful and innocent woman, my mom. Nothing he accomplishes in his worthless life can bring back my mother. Nothing. And no amount of classes or days spent in church praying can fix evil. So while you weigh the pros and cons of why you believe the sorry excuse of a human being should have a second chance at life, something you certainly did not consider for my mother, ask yourself this. Would you want him living next door to you if released?
He's pissed.
Middlesex County Assistant District Attorney Adrian.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Adrian Lynch. I'm Assistant District Attorney in Middlesex County, and I'm Chief of the Homicide Unit. On behalf of the Middlesex DA's office, I thank you for the opportunity to address the board on this important issue as the representative of law enforcement in Middlesex County. It is certainly challenging for the board to have to make a determination as to whether or not someone who was 15 years old at the time they committed a brutal and heinous crime with sadistics, sexual overtones, and overkill is presently rehabilitated in the face of his denial of his responsibility. What can strike you from listening to Mr. O'Brien's testimony throughout the hearing today is that he has an excuse for everything but responsibility for nothing. He may want to claim that he has a motion for new trial, but the question is, in 24 years since his conviction was affirmed, why now? Why, before his hearing before the parole board, are these issues raised? Are they just to send a smoke screen so that you won't look at the actual?
That's a lie, lady. That's a fucking lie. That's a lie right there. See, that's the problem. See, I can talk to you. See, the victims, they feel the way they feel, man, regardless, right? Ryan has a right to feel the way he feels, Aaron. We get all that. You, on the other hand, well, that's a nice picture of you, too. You seem pissed off. Did you do your hair? Didn't look like you did your hair this morning. Hold on a minute. I think I got a brush. Here you go. You can have a brush. God damn. It's fucking stressful over there at the DA's office, huh? Why are you biting your lip like that? You better watch out. You ain't got much of a lip anyway, so The point what I'm trying to make is, ma'am, with all due respect, is that that's a lie. It's a smokescreen. We all know how this goes. You put in a direct appeal, and you can file it any time you want. You don't think when he was inside, he talked to people, and people told him, don't do it at the 10-year mark. You got to put in time. Everybody knows if you put in time, it's a softer landing, so to speak. You put in time, then maybe a judge says, hey, he did his time, and he has a little bit compassion for you. I don't know. But at the end of the day, by you saying that it's a smokescreen, he's been screaming his innocence. The family been talking about this. The problem is they got to go through the DA's office to get a new trial. The same one that didn't give him a fair trial to begin with. So he's supposed to he only gets one shot at this. He only gets one shot to get it right. Nan, you're in the chat. How many shots has he got on a Rule 30? He's only got one shot to have that presentation locked in, loaded, right. He can't change it. Once he files it, and once it's in, whatever he files, whatever he found out in the last 30 years, that's it. He can't go back and say, oh, by the way, let me add this in there. Let me edit this. Let me copy and paste that. Right, Nan? That's it. Once you file it, it's in. There's no turning back. Right, Nan? Is Nan in the chat? Can someone tell me? Am I bugging? Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I got no problem with the victims. Ryan, Aaron. I have no problem with the grandson. But I got a problem with the DA stepping in, acting like, no, he never appealed. He already appealed once. No, he didn't. He put in a direct appeal, meaning that he filed it and he never went through with it. He never went through with it. He just, put it in to let everybody know he was appealing his conviction. You got 60 days to do it in the state of Massachusetts. I don't know about anywhere else, but that's my understanding. I could be wrong. Yeah, he had an automatic direct appeal. He put it in. But he didn't go through an appeal. He waited. He sat on it. And that's what she's trying to say. She's trying to say, well, why did he sit on it for 24 years and this and that? And why? Why is he doing it now? He's playing games. No, he waited for the opportunity. And he figured, hey, it's all lining up. Because at the end of the day, everything that you guys just said on this parole hearing is transcribed. He's got one chance. It's all transcribed. Everything you're saying on this parole hearing is transcribed. All the facts, everything you're saying. He could sit back, and if you say something stupid, Mrs. DA, he could turn around and say, at my parole hearing, she said this. Look, it's right here in writing. Did you believe it? Can you believe it? I know a few things about a few things, ladies and gentlemen. Don't believe the hype. Would you believe that? But the thing is this. You heard what he said. He was sick of not talking about it. He knew the backlash he was going to get. You don't think this guy knew that if he goes up for parole, it was going to get media attention? That's what he wanted. So you mean to tell me this guy, at this point, he's got 30 years in, he wants to embarrass his family, right? Now, the other side of it is that he's sick, he's a liar, takes no responsibility, and he wants to get away with murder, right? That's what you're pushing. Or could it be that he's ready and he's going to take the backlash? He's got 30 years in. Regardless of the matter, if he gets out tomorrow, the public perception is that he killed Janet Downing. Regardless. That's it. You might think he's innocent, but he's still the guy who got arrested for Janet Downing's brutal murder. And he's willing to deal with it. That says a lot, right? It should say a lot. He wants to fight. That's his right. By you saying it's a smokescreen and that it's because he found a loophole. No, he's been waiting for the right time. And if you didn't know, Mrs. DA, timing is everything. Did you know that?
Facts of the case. The reason behind the law emerging between science of brain development and the law is that juveniles are viewed as unique because if they are treated at the right moment, their characters are not set psychologically. They have a malleable personality and they can be rehabilitated. However, Mr. O'Brien's consistent denial of involvement and lack of engagement in any treatment whatsoever has closed that door, which is the very reason, I would suggest, behind giving juveniles the opportunity, once they are adults and have served.
I have to stop you again. Now you're talking with both sides of your mouth. So you basically want him to admit to something he didn't do, right? And if he did admit to it, then maybe he could be rehabilitated. Is that what you're saying? So if he did admit to it and he went through these programs, maybe if someone did something like that to Janet Downing, he could be rehabilitated. Is that what you're saying? I don't know about that. But what I do know is that he did pass a polygraph test, truth serum. You didn't talk about that. And also, he could have just, this is 2024, lady, right? The law passed in 2013. You know that, right? 2013, the law passed, and then he took the parole in 2013. He could have took the parole like a year later. He could have went up for parole in 2014. So 10 years later, he decided to take the parole. He waived it every other time. He didn't have to do this. He knew if he knew he wasn't getting parole. He knew it. He didn't go there expecting to get parole. He went there just to say, hey, J.F.K., check out my parole hearing. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is me now. You never get a chance. This is me. I'm on the screen. This is the guy, Eddie O'Brien, the guy who killed Janet Downing allegedly. This is me. Listen to me. That's why he did it. That's the opposite of hiding. That's the opposite of taking responsibility. He's standing strong. He's standing on business. And you do know, Mrs. DA, that Miss DA, whatever you want to call yourself, you do know that it could go the other way too, right? You know how many people are saying, fuck this dude? There's a lot of people saying, I like Eddie, free Eddie. But how many people are saying, fuck Eddie? But he's willing to take that because it's a platform. He could have just waived it. And he didn't have to show up to this shit, shackled and handcuffed and hear your shit. He could have been in his cell right now eating a fucking honey bun. Listening to JFK, I don't know, doing push-ups, making soup, drinking a coffee, walking the yard, talking to his dad, writing a letter. But no, he went to this hearing knowing that there was going to be no love, and he knew he was going to see all the victims. That's not easy, but he faced them because he's sick or is because he's standing on business. It was planned? I don't know. I'll leave it up to the public's opinion.
A specific period of time. I think it's important also to note, as mentioned in the letter of the Middlesex District Attorney's Office, that the legislature, after Miller and Diachenko, set a statutory minimum of 30 years for someone who is convicted of committing a murder by extreme atrocity or cruelty when they are under the age originally of 18, now of 21. And so the legislature recognized that 30 is the minimum for a crime of extreme atrocity or cruelty. Now, certainly it's not applicable to Mr. O'Brien. His murder was many years before, but it speaks to the societal interest. And in this particular case, it is very concerning, the sadistic nature, because of the testimony at the time of the experts in the analysis, which is that people that are sadistic don't necessarily want treatment. They get gratification out of their acts, and so they're not motivated to it. Similarly, the sexual overtones of the crime, and Mr. Downing brought it out in his testimony. It was more than the bras. It was the pants. It was the fact that the breasts were not.
The sexual overtones in the case. Okay. Well, when he was in prison, he didn't get, no one put a hand on him in prison. Don't you think the inmates know that? You know who knew more about them sexual overtones than what you're saying right now, 30 years later, lady? Guys like me. You stab someone 90 times and you take her bra off. I don't care if you touched her titties or you didn't touch her titties. As soon as you decide to take her bra off, you're a fucking skin beef. You're a rapist. You're a piece of shit. You're in the scope. Nothing happened to him in prison. You don't think, Mrs. DA, that the guys in the prison didn't say, come here, kid. Let me see your paperwork. You said you didn't do it. Prove it to me. Because if you could prove it to me, you can stay on this yard. But if we read it and we think you're guilty, you got to go. And before you go, take this ass whooping. Or maybe take a shank to your neck. But that never happened. Why?
Were not injured, but that the areas above and below were. I mean, these are some serious facts that indicate an individual that I would suggest, before they can be released to the community, have to demonstrate that they've engaged in meaningful treatment to address these very issues. As Dr. Kinshirf testified here today, this crime does not have the characteristics of many of the types of crimes that the Miller court in Dyachenko noted are the hallmarks of juvenile crimes. This wasn't reckless impulsivity. It wasn't needless risk-taking. This had features of planning, timing when the family was out and knew it. It was someone that was familiar with the layout of the crime scene. It was someone who had a weapon available. And he can deny it now that he had showed weapons to the people at the midnight convenience store, but those witnesses testified under oath to those facts. And with regard to his behavior in committing the crime, he acted alone. This is not someone that was subject to peer pressure from his group of friends or from his family in the family dynamic of a homicide such as this. And this was not a situation where he unexpectedly found himself in a situation that he couldn't get out of. So this is not necessarily the case. But I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. As a parole board that views these cases all along. But the public safety concerns that we have to be focused on are whether someone who commits such a crime and can be so calculated that they can go to a very crowded area. He was a large man at the time, young man at the time, and people are going to pick the biggest person in Union Square on Saturday night at 10 o'clock, which is a busy area. But it showed the resourcefulness to explain the deep gash in his hand, which I would suggest was consistent with it being inflicted on him when he was inflicting the injuries on Janet Downing. And again, the focus needs to be on whether or not Mr. O'Brien today, not in some future date when he files his motion for new trial, but whether he can today meet his burden, as he has before the board, of establishing that his release is not inconsistent with the public safety. And I would suggest that the evidence here should raise serious concerns, as they do on the part of the district attorney's office. You know, the board has to take into account a number of competing concerns, but the Middlesex District and the Middlesex District Attorney's Office certainly defers to your wisdom in handling these cases and going.
Let me tell you something. She got a point, though. The biggest man in Union Square they picked on, right? Cut on the hand. Now, chances are she's a DA, right? This is the same type of mentality that he's going in front of when he goes in front of appellate court. He's going against the system. She is part of that system. That's how they're looking at it. Oh, you mean to tell me you were 6'2", 240 pounds or something like that during that space and time when you were 15 and they picked on you and you got a slice on your hand and you didn't say nothing about this? Will we ever get that DNA ran, ladies and gentlemen? That's what it comes down to. Fair is fair. Why ain't she talking about the DNA? Why not bring that up and say, well, you know, with all fairness, he He's talking about some DNA that's not his, and he was excluded, but there's a million other reasons why, and we'll get to that later. But as it goes right now, he got found guilty and he shouldn't be released. Why can't you say it like that? Why ain't that brought up? Can it be brought up? I don't know. System is rigged, for sure. But this is a tough case because the way Janet got hurt, you would assume they got this one right? And based on everything, it seems like they did. When you really just look at it from a casual fan point of view. Cut on his hand, didn't say nothing for 2 weeks, allegedly got jumped. Most people would say he's bullshitting. But now that we know about Adi, if you guys watching the show, and now that, we learned about who Adi is with a car key, could he be the one that did it? Who has more motive? Who do you believe? Do you believe it was a cab driver? Do you believe it was Paul Jr.? Do you believe it was Eddie? Who do you believe? One thing's for sure, all three things happened that night. Paul Jr. left to go to Revere Beach, was in there for 15 minutes, was at Revere Beach, came back home, went in there for 15 minutes, came back with a backpack. In the back of that car, Michelle's car, when he came back that night after his mother got discovered, they went into that car and they found the knife, sneakers, and a T-shirt. That really happened. Adi, 100% was looking for a car key that night and never joined Carol at the hospital. Maybe he did later on. I don't know. I think he said he might have or whatever. I don't even think he did, to be honest with you. But I know at that space and time, the urgency in the moment, he had none. His urgency was the cab and the key. That was his urgency during a murder of what you see now, the blood. And he said he went in the house 4 hours later, on top of everything I said in the opening. He went in the house 4 hours later to get cats, little kitties. But he never mentioned there was a golden retriever in the house. And then where was the kitties? The kitties would have ran and hide. And then we talked to Jeannie last night, and she said she was in the house 3-4 days prior to that, and she ain't never seen a kitty. And she was allergic. And if she was allergic, she would have started sneezing. And would have said, hey, does anybody got a fucking cat in here? Where's the cats? I'm fucking sneezing. Holy shit. And we found out Mickey, the golden retriever, knows how to dive. Fucking guy can dive in the ocean, the Charles River, and find a cell phone from 1998. Mickey's good, this dog. He grabs hands for cops and bends down and takes them to the scene. It's wild what Mickey can do. It really is. But the fact is, that's what happened. He was there, Artie, looking for a key. A key? A key. Gina was there and said he was fresh and so clean. Virginia said the same thing, and so didn't Jeannie. 3 witnesses saying that. Paul Jr. was acting funky. Who do you believe? One thing's for sure, that happened with Adi, Paul. Janet got murdered. That 100% happened. And that's what it comes down to. Never forget, R.I.P. Janet Downing. This happened. The question is, who do you believe? We're going to dig more deep, people. Might be on a little bit later. If we are, put your notifications on. I go by the name of J.F.K. I appreciate your time. Thank you for keeping this up. Justice for Janet. Justice for Eddie O'Brien. Who do you believe? It was the summer of 1995.
Yeah. Yo. Summer of 1995, hot night in July. Why did Janet have to die? This is the story of Eddie, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The system is petty, juvenile law and politics so deadly. 15 years old, known as Big Lovable Teddy. Janet Downing, 42 years old, what's the motive? Killed in her home, young mother devoted. Eddie went in the house, the door was open. She was on the kitchen floor, laying there frozen. Eddie claims this was not what he planned to see. A man with a mask grabbed him. Be quiet. I will kill your whole family. Eddie left the house, ran up the street. Around the corner, washed up in the bathroom at Burger King. Janet was stabbed multiple times. Rest in peace. It was a gruesome murder scene. I agree. Eddie went to his work, said he got jumped, but never said a thing. What? About Janet lying there lifeless. His friend's mother from across the street. Shh. he was in the house. But Janet had a brother-in-law she kicked out for selling drugs. Said if anything ever happened to her, it's him you bring up. The night of the murder he showed up, was acting suspicious in the front yard. Gina in Virginia says he was looking for his keys. It was humid and muggy, but we were showered and neat. He was a cab driver looking for his key. Looking for a key to one of the cabs in the fleet. Yes. How did he know something happened on that street? Eddie says he is innocent, and the cab driver did it.
Who do you believe?
Believe.
DNA under Janet's fingernail, unidentified. Who do you believe?
Come on, come on.
This is the story of Eddie, 15 years old.
Life in prison.
This is the story of Janet, life taken and stolen.
For no reason.
It was the summer,
July 1995.
do you all remember?
30 years ago, why she have to die?
15 years old, locked in a cage of murder that he always denied.
Let's go. Summer of 95. Life goes by. Welcome to the stream, long gamers. Peace and love. La la la. Let's take them back.